Hey friends, welcome to Just Call Me Viv. Grab a coffee, pull up a chair, and let's talk. Hey friends, welcome back to Just Call Me Viv. Today's episode is really special. I have my first guest in the podcast, and it's someone I'm so genuinely happy to have as a guest and someone that I'm happy to reconnect with. I'm joined today by Liz Tomasi. Liz and I've known Liz, I think we've been in some of the same social circles for years, but I recently ran into Liz after seeing her on TikTok. And what I have to say is that I was really drawn just to you and how you show up on TikTok because you're not trying to impress anyone. You're just a real, genuine person. Liz is real and spunky, and she's honest, and she has a way of inspiring people without pretending that life is easy because life is truly messy. So I like that you share your workouts and what you eat and just being, raising four boys and being involved in their lives, being a wife and really being in the thick of living life. And what comes through is like your authenticity. You're a real person, someone that I could actually want to sit down and talk to and just pick your brain. And I would say that I kept thinking this is exactly the kind of person and the kind of women that we need in our lives. So today's conversation is going to be about friendship. And I know this is something that it's right up your alley and it matters a lot to you because I would say in midlife, finding friendships and people that you can really connect with can feel hard, especially in this season of our lives as we're changing, as we're evolving, as we're maturing and aging. But I'm so grateful to have you here today. And honestly, I couldn't imagine a better person to be my first guest on this podcast. So let's pull up a chair and let's talk. First question for you, I guess, is I was drawn to your energy and your spunkiness. What made you start showing up the way you do on social media and TikTok in particular?
Well, there it is. We discussed this, but hi, Vivian. I feel like well, first off, I just want to say thank you. It really is an honor for me to join you today. I've always admired you sort of from afar, and I don't know if that came across, but to your point, we've always been in the same social circles. And I also feel like, through the grapevine, I've heard, I'm like, oh, Vivian's doing this really, cool thing. Like she went to law school, like all of your sort of journey. I've heard of it through our network, and I was always in awe of you. So I did want to make sure I mentioned that as well, because I don't think I've ever actually had the opportunity to express that. So you are inspiring, whether you know it to be true or not.
Thank you.
So yeah, TikTok. TikTok, honestly, I wish I could tell you that there was a lot more intention behind my showing up on TikTok, but I really am just someone who kind of lives life as an adventure. Like, oh, what's this cool new idea that I want to try today? Or and I'm just really like learn, adapt, evolve sort of mentality where I'm like, I'm going to try this, see where it takes me. And then if it doesn't work or I lose interest, I'll move on to the next thing. It's funny, but it's so true. But I think with TikTok, what I like the idea of just like a vlog. I've always been someone who journals. I still do physically. I have tons of journals. I always joke with my boys that I'm like, one day you'll inherit, this, and maybe I'll turn it into some sort of a memoir one day. But there's tons and tons of just feeling and emotion that I just write on page. But yeah, I guess with TikTok, it kind of has become a little bit of a video journal for me, and there isn't any one, like everyone's like, oh, you should kind of stick to a niche. I'm like, I can't. It's just not who I am. Like there's just so much happening, and I joke that I call it a diary of hyperfixations for that reason, because I'm like, who knows what's next? It's kind of an adventure and it's fun, and if you want to tune in, then sure. But yeah, I don't think I know how to be anyone other than myself, so I'm glad that that's come across.
It is.
Yeah, thanks.
I love that about you. And I agree. I don't like this idea of being boxed into doing one thing, because I think I'm one of those people that I have a lot of different passions and I love to do a lot of different things. So being told like you have to stick in your lane or stay in your lane is just really hard. What are you most passionate about right now in your life? And especially in this season of life, you're raising four boys. I see that you're really taking care of your health and you're working out. What is behind some of those things that you do, and what is it that you're truly passionate about at this moment?
So I surprisingly, I started with a vision board for 2025. It was my first time ever putting together a vision board because I'm like, I have all these sort of ideas and these goals, and I want to get them all on paper and or in some form of like a physical sort of manifestation of them all. Everything that I do is with my boys at the center of it. And, you mentioned midlife and also just being like a mom to older children because they're
Hmm.
needing less and less of me and figuring out what my identity is outside of mom and all of that. Where I'm like, okay, some of this is just going to be me finding a hobby because as my boys get older and need less of me, I don't want to be that mom that's like, well, I mean, no offense to all moms. I think all moms are great, but I want to make sure that I'm solid on my own so
Right.
that I'm not driving my children crazy as they get older. Let's be honest, right? They're like, Mom,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't need to call me again for the, X amount of time. So some of it is that. And also just like rediscovering, what I like, who I am, and just kind of grounding myself in that. So what I'm passionate about this year, or the theme for 2025 for me, was community, friendship. Yeah. And just like surrounding myself with a strong sort of social network. And it could be, I have some really close friendships that I'm super fortunate to have. But also, like, I joined a run club this year because, to your point, I enjoy fitness. It's one of my favorite things to do. I started, going on races because there's this whole running community and their mindset and all of that. So it's been me stepping outside of my comfort zone because running can be a sport that you do very much individually and never associate with anyone. Just put your headphones in and just go. Or you could make it as communal as you want. Um, yeah, so I just wanted different sources of community and friendships and belonging almost. So that's kind of what I've been passionate about and what I've been working on this year.
I love that you mentioned running, and I actually did a 10K. I had no business doing it. Absolutely, but
So
I finished it.
cool.
And I think it resonates what you said with me because it was community. It was a group of women encouraging each other, trying to accomplish this goal. And it felt really good. I mean, I was in pain, I was sore for a few days, but
Yeah,
I'm so glad that I was able to do it. So
yeah.
this leads to our next question. And I think what drew me in too was this, you had posted and mentioned something about building community and friendships. When did you notice that friendships started to feel different than they did when you were younger?
So I guess in order for me to unpack that a little bit without it turning into like a therapy session, because I do have a sort of friendship wound. I think that's what it's called, or the term that gets thrown around, and a community wound. I guess so. Where I felt like I needed to put in more effort, because I think to your point, when you're younger, and I see it with my boys, excuse me, I see it with my boys where, they just start talking, they're so outgoing, they make a new friend. Suddenly they're, I meet a new friend in my house. I'm like, who's this person? They're coming by, they're eating my food. And I'm like, it just seems so effortless. And I remember that being me too. I just remember my mom saying, who's this friend? Or my dad's being like, you just like, he would joke and be like, you like collect people. They just suddenly become your people. And I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Like strays.
Right. It's so funny. It's so true. But then, as you get older, it's tough to kind of put yourself out there or feel like, oh man, like I'm already so busy. I'm already juggling all of these things that I have to prioritize this. Like that, I never had to do that before. I feel like that's true for a lot of things, but friendship. So I'd say as my kids started getting a little bit older and I realized that, they'd have an activity and I'd be in and it would just be my husband and I love my husband. He is my best friend or one of them. But I'm like, it can't just be us two all the time. And he has a good group of friends too. So yeah, I think that's where I started to see the shift. But on an even sort of deeper level, not many people know this about me, but I spent many years as a Jehovah's Witness. And a lot of my community was within that religion. And this is where I say, I'm like, I don't want it to become a therapy session, but it's
Right.
tricky when you're leaving an organization. And if anyone knows anything about that organization, you're kind of in or out. There's really no in
Right.
between. I left a lot of community behind there and I kind of had to start from scratch. So that was interesting. But it definitely made me learn what I wanted and the people who I wanted to be surrounded by, and just basically restructure and rebuild an entire new support system outside of just like my husband and my mom and dad and my siblings, you know? So there's that too. I think it was a little bit of both. It was like knowing my kids were getting older and that I needed to find my own way in life, and then also that community wound.
Yeah, that makes sense. How would you say did that happen in your 30s? Were you much younger?
Yeah, so I'm 40, I just turned 44. I'm sure you've heard about it on TikTok. Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you. I haven't shut up about it all month. I'm like, it's my birthday. It's my birthday. But so it was right around the time I was leaving the Jehovah's Witness religion, going through a divorce. I was 32, I believe, at the time. I had spent over a decade in both in that marriage and in that religion. And yeah, it definitely tested a lot of my resilience and just mental sort of fortitude, because you find that you have to really look in the mirror and sit with yourself and know that the decision that you're making is your decision and it's not coming from someone else. Like I don't know anyone who, I mean, again, this, not to make this super political or religious, but I think you have to know who you are, because it's so easy to forget that. And then the voices that you hear are no longer your own. So it's tough to sort of trust your intuition, and you're not even sure if the decisions that you're making are because you chose that for yourself, or if you just feel like you're being led and
Right.
not necessarily taking charge. So yeah, I was in my early 30s, starting over, single mom, leaving the religion, and yeah, it was quite a challenge. I learned a lot during that time for sure. So yeah, I was pretty young.
But here you are,
Yes.
right? Many years later, overcoming that, because I think there's a sense of loss that happens and there's grief that you experience after losing that. And in many ways, that becomes your support network in many ways, right? And so when
Yeah.
you're so deeply rooted and embedded in that, and then tied into that is also your relationship, that can be really quite complicated. I appreciate you sharing that, but also your journey. There's a lot of research that shows that the quality of your relationships matter for your well-being. And yet in midlife, often friendships shrink. Our circle gets a lot smaller. Does that resonate with what you feel or see at this point in your life?
Yes. There's this saying that I heard, and I know a lot of people know, but it's like, if you want a village, you have to learn to be a villager. And
Yes.
that was it for me. I'm like, I knew I wanted my circle to look different. I wanted different perspectives. I wanted different backgrounds, cultures. And I knew that I had to be intentional about that, right? Like if everyone I didn't want to be in an echo chamber of people who sounded like me, who agreed with me. I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to be interesting. I want us to have different hobbies, and I feel like when I was kind of left with my solid few friends that I had from high school, who I still have and love them so much. They're like sisters to me at this point. It was great, but also I was kind of driving them crazy, because it was just like calling them up, like, what do you do? What do you do? Well, Liz, so I was like, okay, I definitely need to expand this a bit. And I've never thought of myself as an introvert. I've always felt like I was more extroverted, but I am. I'm an introvert, especially when I had to kind of seek people out and invite them in. That was really uncomfortable. So I thankfully had a group of friends that were coworkers at one point, but we had worked together for close to a decade. So they just became friends sort of naturally, because those are the people I gravitated to towards when I was at work. I remember reaching back out and reconnecting with them. And that kind of grew because they introduce you to their friends. And, it just kind of sort of expands from there. But it just starts with like taking that initial step of like, oh, I remember this person. They were so fun. Let me reach back out to them. And yeah, it kind of just grew and evolved from there.
That's great to hear. I think that one of the things that I noticed, especially in my early 40s and at the stage that I was in my parenting, I had a younger child. It was this sense of loneliness because you're going through different life stages and transitions. And I started my journey in parenting a lot later than my friends, and my friends had adolescents and they were in the throes of raising teenagers, whilst I was raising a 5-year-old, someone who was
Right.
about to start like kindergarten, and we were at different places. And it was hard admitting the loneliness, and
Mm-hmm.
you silo yourself and you get caught up in your identity as a mother that shifts
Yes.
quickly, that not only are you losing your sense of self, but you're losing your community in a way.
Mhm.
Why do you think women feel, I know that I felt a lot of embarrassment and shame, but why do you think women feel embarrassed admitting that they're lonely at different stages in their lives? Maybe when they're mothering younger children, or maybe as their children are getting older, maybe they're becoming empty nesters. Why do you think that is?
I personally have a hard time being vulnerable. I know that I show up authentically and I try to do, but I know that for me, it's just one of my personality traits. It's an admission of vulnerability. Like, yeah, I am lonely. Yeah, I could use a friend. Also, I don't know that society sets us up for success either. In that case, at least for women, I think sometimes what ends up happening is like you can peg one woman against the other, and it sort of becomes this rivalry, which makes no sense at all. And I remember intentionally embracing womanhood, girlhood, like just really getting into my femininity and what that even meant. I grew up, I have my mom and two sisters, and my mom was not big on community at all. Actually, to this day, we joke all the time. I'm like, Mom, you could really use a few more friends around. It was just one of those things where she'd be like, oh no, like she's a bit envious of you. Or, if I had a friend, I don't know, I don't like the way she treats you. And in some cases that could be valid, right? Like I'm sure moms have this sort of sixth sense where they're like, I don't know about this one. But I felt like with my mom, she wasn't comfortable with her own sort of womanhood, and she never really developed a strong sense of friendship with another female. I actually can think back all those years and being like, Mom, did you ever even have like a friend? I don't remember her ever talking on the phone with her sister or sort of any of that. And then my sisters, same idea. Like it just didn't seem like it was ever prioritized for them. We were close, but yeah, so I didn't really have a lot of strong examples of that.
Right.
So I feel that when it comes to what you're saying, how you kind of had to figure it out on your own. You were like, okay, a strong sense of identity as a mother, and then trying to pivot and say, okay, this friend that I know is in this stage of life, and I love her, and we're probably still going to always stay in touch. But maybe I should find a friend that I could relate to. My mom friends, right? I actually have a group of mom friends that I joke about, but we have a thread that talks about our boys and like what sports they're doing, and it's not to say that there's really any distinction because they're still so much fun. I would still grab coffee with them. There's no real distinction between them and my other friends. It's more of just like we understand that element of one another that we can
Right.
relate to.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. I think it changes too. When you're younger, friendships feel different.
Yeah.
And as you age and get older, they also you get your needs met in a different way from those friendships, I suppose. And knowing that there is more of an awareness about like loneliness, and knowing that it's not a personal failure, that it's actually a very human response, especially as we go through different life transitions. I think that is important. And this is, I think, why I'm so drawn to by the community that naturally evolves and comes from being on social media. I think
Yes.
My kid calls me, Mom, you're a TikTok kid. I'm like, yep, I am. Because I'm always
Same.
looking, I'm cracking up at the things that I see.
Yeah.
And there's always so much talk about how bad social media is. I think that we can glean some of the positives, which is a way of building community. I
Absolutely.
wanted to step in, segue into the next thing, which is friendship loss, right? Because I think
Mm,
some of the friends that we start off with, and you talked a little bit about this at the beginning, we don't move in the same direction. And sometimes friendship loss and friendship breakups can feel really hard.
yes.
Have you experienced any friendships that drifted or ended in ways that you didn't expect?
Yes, for sure. I have. And I could only speak to my actions, and some of it is just maturing, like
Hmm.
emotionally. Maybe not like, because I was an adult, but emotionally maturing. Some of it was just a trauma response and not knowing how to be a good friend. So it's me sort of taking accountability and understanding, okay, what was the role I played in the loss? Because there is grief. And actually it's interesting that you bring it up too, because I never realized, I always thought of like, I never looked at like a friendship breakup, right? Like you always think of like, oh, I was in this relationship with this partner and that's a breakup. And everyone acknowledges that you are separated, but no one ever talks about friendship breakups and how that can be equally as painful depending on how strong that connection was. And you kind of just are forced to sort of process it on your own. And also, I know that for me, I'm like, I never want to be seen as a gossip, right? Of like, oh, this is what
Right.
happened. I never want to be viewed that way. But also, like, I need to be able to process it more so that I can learn from it and figure
Right.
out, like, how I can be better for the friends
Right.
that remain. But I will say, when it comes to friendships, I, again, reevaluating my own role in the situation, it was not being able to communicate effectively. And I feel like that is true for a lot of relationships in general, is not being able to communicate what it is that you need or the feedback that I might give. Cause
Right.
I joke all the time now that I'm like, I'm open to feedback. Like if I'm at work,
Yes.
I'm like, I'm open to feedback. Tell me, tell me, tell me. And I can be pretty direct in how I feel. And I think that that could be a good thing because you're never going to be confused about where you stand with me,
Right.
but also how I position it, right? I don't have to come off as a jerk. I can say it in a
Right.
way. You know what I mean? I don't have to be mean about it. And it's taking a moment to just gather your thoughts and communicate it to where you're not just like yelling or pointing the finger at them and actually giving them, something that they could work with if they need to work on something, or just figuring out where you need to adjust if you want to,
Right.
or even if you want to maintain this friendship. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's just really coming to terms with like, should we continue this friendship? Similar
Right.
to relationships with, a romantic relationship.
Right. Yeah, I think there comes a point where you have to evaluate what are you getting from this relationship, because friendships are relationships, and
Yeah.
sometimes you can choose to part ways and be amicable and still be part of each other's lives, but not with the same depth that you shared when you were close friends. And I think that's also part of the natural evolution of growing up and being an adult. I
Yeah.
tell my daughter all the time, some the friends you start off with now may not be your long life friends. Some you may. I have my oldest friend I've known since we were 5,
I
and
love.
we connect every few years, and we joke that we're going to be in the same nursing home.
Yeah.
But some friends are long lasting, and some meet your needs or come for a phase in your life when you needed those friendships most. So I think friendships are beautiful. I wish, like you said, that we would talk more about the changes or the losses that we experience as women. So I appreciate you sharing all that.
Yeah.
The next question, I guess, and this one is one that you feels harder for me because I identify as an introvert, and I always have. I've been very timid. Big social spaces cause a lot of anxiety for me. I can say that I've gotten better as I've gotten older, but I'm still the person that when I am invited to a social gathering or an event, I'm going to stand in the corner somewhere. I'm going to hide away, and I'm not necessarily going to have the small talk. So I find that even in midlife, making friendships can feel really hard. But it takes, as you say, putting yourself out there, doing the
Yeah.
outreach, reaching out to someone, sending that text message, really trying to connect. So I guess from your perspective, why does putting oneself out there feel scarier now, I think, as an older woman than it did when you were younger?
That's a good question. I have to think about that and sit with that for a second because as you get older, I feel like you are more set in your ways. So you form these habits, right? Like the habits I had when I was 20 were only 20 years in, right? Now these habits that I have, is that my wife? Oh, there it is. Now my habits are 40 years in, so it's whatever those sort of, and also I feel as though as an adult and, as you get older, people have less time, and excuse my language, but for the BS. Like
Right.
they're more like it's either going to work, it doesn't move along. So the fear of rejection is real because like people just I don't think that they have necessarily less patience, but their time is precious, because they're
Yes.
dividing it among their family and so to be able to fit in again, it feels like sad to say, but it's like to fit in a friendship or a relationship and juggling an already sort of busy agenda. It's like you tend to filter people out a lot faster than you when you're a kid. You're kind of just like, oh yeah, let's all hang out. Like it's because you got all the time in the world and all the possibilities are endless, and it doesn't even you're not even thinking too hard about it. And now I feel like we're thinking a lot about how this is going to work out, and we could see 10 steps ahead because of experience, that we've had previously. So I think there's some of that. There's just a lot of that comes up even before you actually make the move of, contacting this person or being like, I actually kind of like this person. I feel like this could be someone who I want to go grab coffee with.
Right.
You psych yourself out. You're like,
Yeah.
maybe not. I don't think they'll answer. I don't know. It's so funny. I don't have teenage girls, but there's this mom on TikTok. I can't think of her name right now, but she jokes about how like she tries to initiate like a lunch date with her daughter because she's like trying so hard to impress her daughter because teenage girls can be like, "Are you cool enough to hang out with me?" type of thing.
Yes.
It's kind
That's
of
true.
that energy. Yeah, right. It's kind of a little bit of that energy. It was like I just want her to like think I'm cool or just which I love. I think that's beautiful, but I do tend to think that we overthink it a little too much. If we could tap back into our younger selves, like it was kind of so carefree and
It
nonchalant. You
was.
were just like, let's go grab, here, let's go to the mall. Let's, whatever it was. So yeah.
Yeah, no, we didn't care about like making a good impression. We just wanted to get to know someone new. So I think we become a little more discerning also as we get older. Because I know for me, not everyone that I am friendly with, I'm inviting to my house, right? Like you have to
That's
be
right.
close to the heart for you to come into my space because this is the one place where I feel most at home. I can be myself. So if I'm opening up my doors to you, that means like we're family.
Mhm.
And as you pointed out earlier, friendships and female friendships tap into the same emotional vulnerability as romantic relationships, and that explains why that fear of rejection can feel really personal. And that worry, like, are they going to like me enough? Right. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
What do you think really helps friendships deepen over time?
Paying attention. And again, it's so funny, but the parallels between romantic relationships and friendships they're scarily the same. Like it's scary how similar they are. I say paying attention, right? Like I know I have this one friend and if she does watch this, she's going to crack up because she knows what I'm talking about. Her love language is like gift giving. And it's not because she's materialistic at all. It's more of like, oh, you thought of me enough. And she travels a ton too. So she'll be in like Japan and she knows that I like to read. So she got me this bookmark with like Mount Fuji, I think. Don't quote me on that. I think it's Mount Fuji. And she brought it back to me. And it's just a bookmark, but I know that's her love language and so it's me paying attention and saying, okay, when I go here, I know she likes this color green, and I'm going to make sure that I get her this headband because she mentioned that, her ears get cold and she was looking into it, just paying attention. So there's that I feel like has helped a ton. Also opening up my home, because to your point, my home is my sanctuary, right? And also with my boys here, I don't want to just bring any one person in and out. And it is how do I say, you're right. Like, it almost feels like it's very personal and it's very intimate. That's the word I'm looking for. Like, you're in my house now. So it feels like we're taking a big step, right? We're not at coffee. We're not at this public sort of space. You're in my house. Also, I see how I've created that space for my boys' friends when they come by. So when they come, their friends are coming in and out of the house all the time. And I'm like, what's the difference between having their friends here and my friends here, right? Like, there was one event that I hosted recently where one of my friends, it had a quick conversation with one of my son's friends. And then they saw each other, I joke, but like out in the wild, and they recognized each other. She's like, hey. And she's like, oh yeah, I'm Christian's aunt. Like she mentioned my son. She's like, I'm his aunt, even though they're not, and she's like, oh, that's right. We just met. And it was cute because she's like, I'm seeing all of these teenagers who I would otherwise just look at them like, oh, that's just a teenage boy. And it's like, oh, I actually saw him. So to become a communal space, and it does make me a bit uncomfortable, but at the same time, it has been a gathering space for everyone. I feel like that has helped. That's helped because not everyone has the money to always like grab coffee. I have a friend that just moved back from South Korea and she's in between jobs. She was teaching in South Korea. So I keep that in mind. I'm like, okay, right now she's job searching and I know she's okay, but just keeping in mind, like maybe we could go for a walk, right? That might be more convenient, more accessible. Have her over for coffee, things like that have helped for sure.
Why do you think, or I should say, what? And there they go again. What do you think really helps friendships deepen over time?
From my experience, when I've gone through it and I've allowed myself, I almost feel like there's like this gauge of how vulnerable you're willing to be with a human, like another human, like human to human, and their tolerance for that. Like you know what I mean? It's like, this is who I am. There's a lot that comes with all of this. Like, I'm fun and spunky on the outside, but there's a lot happening on the inside. And how much tolerance do you have for that? And it's okay. It's okay if some friends have less tolerance, because then you just know, okay, that's just not the person I'm going to tap into when I'm having these sort of big feelings, and having it be sort of reciprocal as well. Because if like you want to be vulnerable with someone, you also have to provide the space, I feel, for them to also be. So an example I can give is I had a friend who was going through the fight for her life. She was fighting breast cancer. And there were times that, I had to tell myself, like, this is like I don't know. I just felt like the empathy of like, if this were you, what would you want? And also not making it about me, because it isn't at all. It's just like, how do you show up big time for this person? And realizing like, oh man, we're not kids anymore. This is the type of stuff that's going to come up for us now. And are you ready for this phase of life? And again, I won't get into all the logistics of how it all turned out, because that's their story, or her story to share. But in my mind, I kind of said to myself, like, this is friendship. This is what you got to do. You got to show up. And for however hard that is, it's just to lessen the load for that individual. Yeah. So that helps deepen, I hate to say that, trauma. But also, I think on a bright side, I feel like things like travel, like being able to experience this person in different environments. So if you want to, instead of it being sort of a trauma response, but like intentionally planning these big life events. So if they're, if you know that they're getting married, like just being there, regardless of what role you play, whether or not you're included in the wedding party, but just knowing that like it's an exciting thing. How do I show up for them? And just understanding like, this is a celebration for them. So therefore it's a celebration for you. So you're rooting them on, like being their biggest cheerleader in some ways. I have another friend who's pursuing an MBA, and she's younger actually too. I meant to mention that too, in terms of like diverse friendships. I have some friends that are a lot younger. She's 30. I'm 44. Like, you would think like, what do we have in common? But she's an incredible powerhouse of a woman. And she's like one of the youngest managers at her organization and doing all these really cool things. And we met at Apple during my time at Apple. And I'm still connected to her. And I actually was asking her, she's like, yeah, I've got like a year left. And she's really just crushing it. And I'm a cheerleader because I'm like, that's wicked cool. The fact that I haven't gone for an MBA, so just learning how to show up for people in whatever capacity that might look like for them. And then sort of switching environments and experiencing them in different ways. Like I said, I have that one friend that wants to travel trip yet. But she's like, that's it. We're doing it. Like 2026 is the year because that's important to her.
Yes.
I was like, I don't know. I might have to look at the finances a bit. But yeah, I mean, who knows? We'll manifest it. We'll see how it works out. I'll keep you posted.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think that's important. I think the quality of your friendships really depends on what risk you take and how open you are to people and how you create space for them and their vulnerability and their humanity. I know that for me, this time in my life, being a new 50-year-old, and it sounds strange saying I'm 50.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And also, the whole idea behind looking 50, you are absolutely stunning at every stage of life. But like, that's 50. I welcome it. Let's go.
Yes. 50, I will say 50 feels different. I'm probably the most comfortable I've ever been in my body and in my skin and in who I am. I don't know if it has to do with like I've lived for 50 years, but it feels good. And knowing that I'm at the phase in my life where, I jumped into dating again after not dating for almost 10 years. And I have one friend that I can just be really open and honest and do my ugly cry with. And she holds space for me and she's married. And she's the one I seek counsel from, right? Because what I'm looking for is longevity in a relationship. I want to be a wife. I want someone who's in my life until my last breath, right?
Right.
So what I'm looking for is forever. So it helps to have different kinds of friendship for
Yes.
I would say the different stages that you are in life. And I appreciate that you have younger friends because I think you get something else. There's an essence that you get from people who are younger. There's a different perspective. There's a different lens in how you view the world and also like the different generations. So I think there's beauty in having a diverse group of friends.
Yes, for sure.
I guess my next question would be, how does a good friendship look like to you now? What does a good friendship look like to you now? And pardon my grammar.
No, that's okay. And I'm all over the place with my grammar, so please don't feel obligated to like at all. Because especially when I'm having to talk, I joke all the time that like my communication skills, there's a lot happening in here that when I go to express it, it's coming out a million miles a minute. So that's
my daughter tells me I glitch all the time.
Yeah. Real life buffering, like that's happening in the moment. So I would say, and this is as what I've learned about myself, because I think you have to really know who you are. And that's going to always change because you're changing, you're learning. But I think revisiting yourself first and saying, okay, what do I want? What is true to me? What resonates with me? And I feel like the sort of thread that I've had over the last decade or so has been like, I need somebody to allow me to be as free and open as possible. Because again, my hobbies might change. I'm a nerd in all the ways that I love anime, I love theater, I love reading, I love tech. Like my interests and hobbies are all over the place. But I'm also a little bit of like, I hate to use these sort of stereotypical terms, but like a jock too, because like I never grew up an athlete, but I love an empty gym. I love working out. I love pushing my body. And then there, all of these sort of quirky things about me. I'm direct, but if I am, it's because I trust that you will understand me. And then I'm very intuitive too. So like sometimes I'm like, ooh, was that too much? And I sort of, and I'll even say it like in real time and they're like, you're hilarious. Like, it's fine. Because my intention is to never come across as like mean or judgy or any of that. I'm like, no, I'm times like, again, my brain is just going, and it might come out, and I'm like, wait, it didn't come out that way. I swear, I promise. So allowing somebody to just like see me for who I am and love me for all that I am, like that sort of freedom that comes with that. And I say that because in my relationship with my husband, that's been the case for both of us. As I'm sure you could imagine, he met me, single mom, 4 boys, and stepped into more than one role, whether he liked it or not. Right?
Uh-huh.
And I remember saying, not to make this about my relationship, but I remember thinking, I never thought of like, oh, no one's ever going to want me. That I never had that doom and gloom attitude. That's just not who I am. But I do remember thinking, whoever it is better come, better be strong. Because I'm already a lot. I'm a lot. And I've learned to love, my bigness and like my personality and all of that. And then you multiply that times 4, because my children are also have these sort of big personalities, and I love that about them. And that's how I love them. I don't ever want to shrink them. And no one ever taught me to shrink myself. So I definitely am not going to have my boys feel that way. So whoever comes into our life romantically or as a friendship, just know that like it's big. It's a lot over here.
Uh-huh.
So allowing to love me freely and without expectation, because I promise you I will deliver. I'll do my part. At least I've learned that I have to do my part. But the expectation is like, if you're coming in, like it's almost like this sort of big unconditional love. Like it's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask of someone, but you get it. Like people will eventually be like, you know what? You're just interesting enough that I'm going to keep you around for a while.
That's
'Cause
right.
You're fun,
I'm going to keep you.
Right.
Hold on to you.
Yes.
And those are the people you want to keep around. Those are the people that truly understand who you are and can see you come undone and be there to support you and are going to be the biggest cheerleaders in your life. So those are rare.
Yes.
So they're like gems, and we want to hold on to them. It's like your spouse, your partner, or like your best friend. We want to hang on tight to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which brings me to this sort of women supporting women, because you mentioned it earlier. Sometimes when we're younger, it becomes this competitiveness of who can one up the other.
Yeah.
I've never
I'm
been
guilty
about
of
that,
it.
I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been about that, just because I was always a
Good.
wallflower. So I was always watching. I was always in awe of women that I just felt like they were unicorns and they were so rare, and I wanted to be like them, or I wanted to sort of learn from them in many ways. So I think that's how I navigated like my 20s and my 40s. I wanted to be like some of these women that I looked up to and I was amazed by. But sort of that competitiveness and trying to just be better or outdo people, it can be really toxic.
Yes.
Why do you think, I know for me, it's especially important now, supporting women, supporting them in their endeavors and cheering them on from the sidelines and in their projects and in their lives. Why do you think that that's important? Or is it something that matters to you, especially now?
Absolutely. It's so important. One, and I say this again because I think one of the best ways to love someone or to be a part of their life is to take an interest in what they're interested in. And it's important to them. It doesn't matter if it doesn't resonate with you. It's what's important to them and showing up for them. This is similar to my children, right? Like they play all these sports that I've never, two of them are actually wrestling now. And I watch this sport and it's so intense and it's so like foreign to me, but I'm on the mat like, let's go, So it's like, because it's so important to them that it gets me excited for them, right? At least. And that's similar to with my friends. Like I have no idea what my friend who is pursuing her MBA, she's so smart. She's going through and she's just talking and she's excited about it. And I'm just sitting there with like a twinkle in my eye, like, you're so cool,
Yeah.
So it's really, to me, it's like, you're passionate about it. I can see your shine when you talk about it, you light up. And that's enough for me to just, I'm all in. I also feel in terms of the other end, I have been guilty of being competitive. And I will say a lot of that is what you're taught. And I don't want to point the finger or blame anyone, but somewhere along the line, I thought that to be the case. And there's this like term that I hear now. It's called like the pick me when it comes to like men, right? Like, it's like, oh, well, is she acting like a pick me? Like, is she trying to seek the attention and favor of the men in the room? And, and that's where I think that sometimes we can be pegged against one another or feeling like we have to show up for men in a certain way. And to your point, like it's so much, obviously, time and just experiences will teach you that that's not the case at all. But I was guilty of that when I was younger. And I feel like it did play a role in some of my friendships and just, it took a minute for me to just be like, wait a minute, what are you doing? Ill. This is gross, toxic behavior, like knock it off. And immediately, like if I sense that energy, you understand that it's coming from a place of sort of insecurity.
Yes.
You almost kind of went be like, oh no, like baby girl, come here. Let's
Right.
join this. Like this is so much more fun over here. Like
Right.
come to the bright side.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I think it's those situations are really conditioned and primed when we're expected or we're performing for the male gaze or male
Yes.
approval. And I think some of that falls away as we become more secure in ourselves. And I think it does come from a place of insecurity. I think we're taught to sort of, again, be prettier and do it and all these crazy things that are unhealthy for us. I think some of that comes with being comfortable in your skin and who you are. And I think that also comes from having good connections and friendships to support you in your life. And when you lack that in your life, you seek it outwardly.
Yes.
So that makes complete sense to me.
Yeah.
One final question before we wrap things up. Would you say women be more honest and generous with one another without comparison, as you mentioned, without trying to compete with one another?
I think you have to sort of, I think it starts with paying attention because some people aren't going to explain their needs and wants up front, right? So I think you kind of have to pay attention to what they feel comfortable sharing and how you sort of position whatever question you might have. If, for instance, like if I see a friend who's a little bit more reserved, it could be she could be going through something and she might not be someone who wants to talk about it. She wants to kind of isolate herself and figure it out on her own. And you don't want to cross a boundary, right? Like, because my idea would be like, let me show up and do whatever I need to do and like, let's problem solve this together. But I'm guilty of isolating myself when I need my friends most. And so it's understanding, okay, how can I make an impact? And sometimes it's just going to be like, okay, I am going to give her space, but I'll check in every so often. Or if I feel like they might be struggling and they don't want to communicate that, it's taking a moment to be like, okay, so how do I, again, find a way to support without feeling like I'm crossing a boundary and doing a little bit of investigative work on your side. And this is a type of sort of labor that comes with wanting to be a good villager because it's not even just with your friends. It could just be in your community. Like I joke all the time, but my neighbor next door, she's 76 and she's like one of my best friends. I joke, but like I'll have her over for coffee. She'll text me whenever we're having an event and it's really just like I'm a community member. She's my friend, but she's also like I'm just showing up for community. And how do I do that in a way that again doesn't cross a boundary, but I'm offering that support and leaving that door open so that they know, okay, I can tap into this person when I'm ready.
Right. Yeah. Communication and boundaries don't mean that you build up walls. You just open doors, right? And
Yeah.
you welcome people based on your limits and what you're willing to put up with and tolerate. So
Yeah.
I like that example you gave. And again, noting that you have friends who are older too, that there's
Yeah.
beauty in that too, and
My
surrounding
gosh.
yourself with
Yeah.
people from different stages of life. Liz,
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you joined me today. This has been so wonderful and amazing, and like talking to an old friend who I just
Yes.
reconnected with after many,
Yes.
many years.
Yeah.
I think what really helped me in hearing, because I think I'm in the same place as you in terms of wanting to continue to build community and those supportive friendships that they really feel like they're home for me,
Yeah.
and how important it is to have great women in your circle and women who are going to cheer you on from, again, the sidelines, and they're going to be there to pick up the pieces when you fall apart. I think that's so important. And I want to encourage women out there to continue to take risks. And just like they take risks in their professional life, to do so with their friendships and not to feel so alone, especially if you're a younger mother. I wonder if this would be helpful for a younger mom who's at home and maybe she feels alone because now she's, taking care of little babies and
Yeah.
her friends are maybe out sort of building up their careers or maybe in different stages in their parenting. So what's one small step, do you think, what advice you would give that one woman that she could take now, not to fix everything in her life, but just to begin creating that community and that space for friendship?
It's like a muscle. You kind of have to work it. You don't have to work it too hard, but every so often check in with reaching out, being the person to reach out. Because to your point, I remember being a young mom, raising three tiny humans. I mean, I have four now, but my oldest three are very close in age, and it's so lonely and so isolating. And there were moments where I'm like, I'm not going to bother reaching out because who's going to want to hang out with me and my three toddlers? And some of them were single. I actually did have some friends who had older children who just, wasn't in that stage anymore. So they had a lot more freedom. And I remember looking at them like being envious, like, oh, I wish I were there. And now I think back to those moments. I'm like, oh, I miss them when they were young. But I think you do have to flex that muscle a little bit and be uncomfortable and do it anyways and reach out because people aren't mind readers. People are busy. They usually have pretty good intentions. I think if you keep the mindset of like, just people aren't, preying on your downfall, right? Like people actually are just busy and are living life. And it's up to you to kind of take that first step and seek out that sort of connection if you're feeling lonely or isolated.
Thank you so much, Liz, for joining me today. And for anyone out there who's listening, no, thank you. I mean, you're my first guest.
I feel honored. I do.
And I hope that you'll come back for more.
Yes. Yes.
I want to create this space really for women. I think we're often ignored or feel invisible as we get older, right? It's almost like the aging woman disappears and we're looking for youth out there. And we have so much value to add into the world. And this is just a space where we talk to each other and can be human and can have this sisterhood, I guess, of women who are stepping into different phases as we get older. But I'm hoping that to the women listening to this, that if this conversation resonated with them, that they know that there's nothing wrong with them, that loneliness, especially in midlife, is normal, and that we want to encourage them to create the space and the community that they need to feel supported as women. And again, if you enjoyed this podcast, I'd like them for them to like it and subscribe and comment and reach out, follow Liz on TikTok. I will include her TikTok in my description box below. But thank you again, Liz. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
You too. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.